today we're gonna just start from like the beginning of a transaction to the end of a transaction. That's kind of the goal. So the first piece of contract, you know, that you're going to use with the buyer is going to be the BRBC. So we're going to go over that in depth. That's kind of our plan today. And then there's also another document called, hi, how are you? Good. The property showing representation agreement, and I'm going to explain the difference between the two. So either one of those documents you're going to use for all of your buyers. Okay, so let me give you, I printed out a few, so you guys have actual copies in front of you. It's much easier to go through. If you have a pen, you can fill them out together, because the ones I have are blank. So that's the goal, is to kind of fill out everything together and walk through it. Okay, so first page is going to be the agency, thelakes.com. Yeah. You guys want to write that down? All of our, like our tax ID, our license numbers, there's like a form on there that has all of that information. So you can see what our license number is, 0205-3931. So 0205-3931, that's our broker license.
And what was the website, did you say?
It is BET, B-E-T, on kwthelakes.com. So BETON kwthelakes.com.
And this is exactly the same on both.
Yes, we'll go over the second one. It's not as lengthy, but it's going to be exactly the same. The agency portion is going to be filled out exactly the same. The forms just serve two different functions. So I'll explain those when we get into it in more detail. So you're going to have buyer, and then lakes, the lakes, and you can write it however you want. Keller Williams the Lakes, KW the Lakes, it doesn't matter. And then your name and your license number. So that's obviously going to be different for every agent. Okay? And then once you fill it in there, it populates to everything. So it'll go over to the rest of the contract. Okay. So next page, that's just more verbiage about the agency. The third page is going to be the actual meat and potatoes. Okay? So the BRBC is the buyer's representation and broker's compensation agreement. And this is the first page is what you're going to mainly fill out. The rest is just explaining what the page says. Okay, so we're going to just start and go through each section. I'm going to break down each section for you guys. So top section, date prepared, is going to be the day you're actually doing this document. You want this day to be before you're going to show buyers' homes. So if you do during your buyer's consultation, as long as you're doing it before you go show them homes, that's protecting you, okay? So you want this signed, it doesn't have to be right when you meet them, but as you guys build a relationship and you're gonna start showing properties, you need to have that filled out, because if you don't, and they wanna put in an offer, and you don't have this filled out, you're not gonna get paid. So you wanna make sure before you're wasting your time, you know, some buyers, I just wanna go look at some houses. You need to have this agreement. It's like if you're taking a listing, you're not gonna just put the house on the MLS and start advertising it. You're gonna get in trouble for doing that. Okay, so this is protecting you to get paid. All right, we'll go through each line of like what you need to do or what you need to say with your buyer. But date prepared, buyer's name is gonna go in box 1. And then broker name, Grant's broker, is gonna be Keller Williams Lakes. Anytime it says broker or firm, that's the Lakes. Okay, and then down here below, it's going to say the items in this paragraph are contractual terms of the agreement, and it's going to explain. So all of these quadrants, if you look on the next couple pages, it explains what each of them means. So like if you go to 2A1 and then turn the page, you're going to see the explanation of what 2A1 means. So if you want to read through each, are you in the wrong one?
Yeah.
It's okay.
I didn't even realize.
That's okay. They're pretty much
That's
the
what we're
same.
here for.
They're pretty much the same. So
Well,
you just want to be in this one that says the BRBC at the top.
It's a thicker.
The thicker one. Yeah, the thicker one is where you're going to want to be. There you go.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry.
But the agency's the same, so you're good, you're good. So for the first section, where it says representation period, you're gonna have to put a beginning date and an ending date. Has be in there to be valid, okay? So you're gonna put, if it's today's date, because you're gonna go show the property today, then you put today's date. And it can only be for 90 days. So today's what, the 15th, 16th?
15th, yep.
15th. So you could essentially do your agreement from August 15th, September, October, November 15th. 90 days only. And that's really important because if you have a 6-month agreement, it's not valid. So if they challenged you later on it, you didn't put in the right dates. And it explains it right here. Not to exceed 3 months unless the buyer's a corporation, LLC, or partnership. So if they happen to be a regular buyer, just, husband and wife, they're not gonna qualify for that. Most people aren't, so just do the 90 days. But if it was like an investor you were working with and they signed this agreement in their LLC, because they're gonna buy properties, you could do it longer than the 3 months. So I would say 6 months is what I would say for that. Okay? But rule for you guys most likely is gonna be the 90 days, okay? And then next part is very important, A2, type of representation. The contract defaults to non-exclusive. You do not want a non-exclusive agreement, you want exclusive. So hopefully no one tried to get in. I wasn't paying attention. Let's see. No, I don't think so. I think we're good. You don't want it to be non-exclusive, you want to check the box exclusive. And that means you are exclusively representing them. They cannot go sign another agreement with someone else, with another agent, okay? If you do non-exclusive, they can sign 20 billion agreements with whoever they want. They could be out looking at properties with whoever they want, and that is going to, not protect you. If you're the one showing them property and you're out doing the legwork, you want to get paid for it. You don't want them to go to someone else and then all of a sudden they're putting an offering with them and there's nothing you can do about it because you had a non-exclusive agreement. So very important to check that box. Also on the last page, initialed in paragraph 15, we'll get there, it's a couple pages in, they have to initial a certain box. And this is really important on DocuSign, it's optional. So I see agents' contracts come through sometimes and I'm like, hey, your client did not initial. It's not exclusive if you didn't initial that. I'm like, what do you mean? It's just optional. And it's not because their buyer meant to not do it, they just skip through on DocuSign, click, and they miss it. So I always in DocuSign, you can go through and check the document, you click the little initial box and you make it mandatory that they have to sign it. So that it never gets missed. That's just a little tip because for whatever reason, DocuSign does that and they want you to like double check your work basically. Okay, so any questions so far? All right, so next section is property type. B1, so single family residence is what the contract defaults to. So that's gonna pertain to most of your transactions, single family homes. Don't check the next box, single family is excluded from this agreement. I see that all the time because agents read it quickly and they think, oh, single family residence, click, and they just click it. It already defaults, you don't have to check anything if you're doing just single family residence. But if your client was looking at, a lot that we see come through here is vacant land. If they're looking at land, you need to check vacant land. And there can be multiple things. So it doesn't have to be just one, just single family residence. You could do single family residence, multi-family residence with 2 or more units. So maybe your clients are looking at buying a duplex, just check both. It can be single family and multi, or just check multi because it's already defaulted, but it doesn't matter. You can also add in other specified properties. Some agents will type in manufactured homes here or mobile homes. You don't necessarily have to because mobile homes technically would be considered a single family residence, but you could. If it was like a mobile home in a park that's not like it's more personal property, you could put that in as specified, the following specified, and then you're covered. Okay, so any questions on that part? Okay. Location is B2, so counties and cities. So my advice here is to just do counties, just pick counties. Because what if your client, you only put Lake Elsinore and Menifee, and then they're all of a sudden looking at Wildemar? Your agreement, and you forget what your agreement says, and then you go to write an offer in Wildemar, and your BRBC does not cover that, okay?
So don't put.
I would
Just
not
go to
put
counties.
cities. I would do Riverside, so if you know your clients are in our office, we do a lot of Riverside, San Bernardino, Orange, if, you know, they're Orange County and LA County are usually the two together, San Bernardino and Riverside County are the two together usually. So just depending on where your client's looking, it doesn't matter if you have all 5 counties. If you're like, I don't know where they're gonna look, then put all of them in our area, okay? But don't do cities, it's not necessary, okay? And then the C, or additional description, would be if there was any kind of other things you wanna write. You're not gonna put anything really. C is additional buyer preferences and priorities. C, attached buyer identification of preferences and priorities. So this BIPP form is another CAR form that they created for us. And it's basically, we don't need it in the office, but it's a form to help you. So when you're in your CAR forms, if you guys wanna look at it, it basically breaks down like what are the buyer's preferences, like certain types of properties, what the properties have. It's kind of like a cheat sheet to help you in your buyer's consultation, or you know, when you're sitting and talking to them on the phone, questions to ask them about what kind of properties they're looking for. You don't have to check this and have that form. We don't require it, but you can do it. It's an option there for you to add that form if you'd like. Where I would say this comes in to help you is when, say there was a discrepancy and this is just like an example, if your agreement expired, say your agreement expired after 90 days, and then the person went and signed a contract with someone else, the buyer, but you showed them that property, the more information you have regarding your buyer can help your case, as far as saying, hey, I showed them that property, I deserve a commission. So if you have more things filled out, and I'm gonna get into that on this little continuation period in a second, if you have to do certain things in order to try to get your commission if your agreement expired and they looked at properties without you. So that's kind of like, if your buyer, you have maybe the relation compensation. So right here at the top where it has the line with percent, you're gonna put 3% there. Is that what you're gonna try to put, okay? If your buyer does not have to pay you a commission if the seller ends up paying you the commission. So in our offers, we always ask the seller to cover our commission. So we let our buyer know that, hey, I have to charge a commission. I'm going to negotiate on whatever houses you offer on. I'm gonna negotiate on your behalf, and I'm gonna try to get that seller to pay my commission of 3%. Now, if they don't pay it, say they only wanna pay 2%. Now there's a 1% difference. At that point, you guys decide, am I gonna have this buyer pay me the 1%, or am I just gonna take the 2% that the seller's willing to pay me? Most sellers right now are paying 2%. 2.5% if we're lucky. 3 is very rare. It comes through, I see it. So why I say put 3% on here is because you want to go ask the seller to pay you 3%. You cannot ask them for 3% unless you have a buyer broker agreement that states 3%.
So if we put 2% there and the seller was willing to pay us 3%, guess what? We can only get 2%. So always aim high.
Yeah, always say 3. And let your buyers know. I think buyers, they're like nervous, like, well, how am I gonna pay that 1% or 2%? I don't have it. I'm paying my down payment, I'm paying my closing costs. I don't have it. Stressed out. That's okay. Let's see what the seller's willing to pay me, and then we'll figure it out from there.
But for purposes of this document,
You put 3.
You put 3.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, 3%. And then I always tell the agents, when they go put an offer in, put 3% on your offer. The worst they're gonna come back and say is less, and tell you no, but if you didn't put 3, you know if you're gonna get 3.
If they were willing to pay 3% commission, but you put 1.5 or 2, they won't give you that extra one.
They're gonna just give you what you asked for,
So legally though, they have to come to a mutual agreement, right? In regards to the commission payout, because for instance, if my standard was 2%, they can't go below that.
They can, it's a matter of what's accepting.
Okay, so if they come back and negotiate and say, okay, well, we wanna pay you less than 2%, and I say no, then no deal, no partnership, no
Yeah, so that's where we run into, if you run into stuff like that, because the brokerage is 2%. Like, the brokerage wants 2% here. That's like when you sign up for the office.
Yep.
But we're at the mercy too of getting commission paid from sellers. So if you guys run into a situation where you're running into, they're only gonna pay me 1%, then that's a conversation with myself, Sophia, you know, coach, like, hey, they're only gonna give me 1%, how do we figure this out? Because then maybe we're gonna ask our buyer to cover the other 1%. We're gonna put like a set amount. So the set amount is a lot of times with mobiles. Mobiles or land. I
Yes,
see it with land.
yes.
So you wouldn't put a percent because sometimes mobiles are like 100 grand or 80 grand. Well, you're not gonna put 3% because that commission's super small. You wanna put maybe like 5 grand or an amount.
A flat fee.
Yeah, flat fee instead of putting a commission, just because if it's a $50,000 mobile and you do 3%, that's $1,500. You're gonna do the same amount of work on that mobile as you did on a regular single family residence. So you're gonna wanna have more, like more of a flat fee.
And to piggyback to what our compliance officer just said is that if we were to do a mobile home, which we welcome all the business, but we take 1,500 as a compensation, but there's the franchise fees, there's the split, there's our TC, there's the, you end up seeing $50 out of that 1,500.
Yeah,
So if you put a flat fee, you set the expectations and you let the seller know, hey, I'll take care of the mobile home sale,
Yeah.
but this is the least I could do it.
Yeah.
Where does that number go?
I was asking this.
Below the percent.
Okay, got
So where it says or, you would check that box and put in that amount. So for land, I see it too.
Yeah.
I see it a lot for land actually. So they'll put a flat fee where, you know, parcel of land in Elsinore is 50 grand. So they'll put, you know, the lowest I'm gonna take is 4,000 or 5,000. Because you're essentially, just because the price point is lower doesn't mean you're not doing the same amount
Yes,
of work in
yes.
an escrow. You're doing, mobiles a lot of times are more work than a single family
Yeah.
residence.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot
Or
that
you,
goes
or you
into
gotta
it.
go to Barstow and show a vacant land, you gotta
Yes.
drive 80 miles.
Yes.
You wanna do that for 50 bucks?
Exactly, you know, so that's where you put a flat fee. And then below here, if you had like a broker created compensation schedule, you would check that box. We don't have that. We
Yeah.
just do it off, you know, each client is gonna be different. So you would never check that box. And then E2 is payments received by broker from seller or others. If broker receives compensation from seller or others for broker's representation of buyer, the amount shall be credited against buyer's obligation to pay broker. Broker shall not receive any amount in excess of the amount specified in 2E, which is here. So all that's saying is if you say 3%, it's telling our buyer, I'm asking you for 3% to pay me. I'm gonna ask the seller to cover. If seller covers 2%, there's only 1% left. So the buyer would be responsible for 1%. If buyer can't pay the 1%, then we just do a modification to this agreement. So that's all we would do, but it's just telling our buyer that you can't, when we started these BRBCs, it was, I'm gonna charge my buyer 3% and I'm gonna ask the seller to pay 3% and I'm making 6%.
People were getting greedy.
And that is not what you can do. That is never been allowed. That's not what you can do. So that's just telling our buyer that. Because they might think, well, if you ask the seller to pay you a commission and then I'm paying you 3%, I agree to pay you 3%, how much, like, it's all deducted towards what your buyer is gonna pay you. Okay, so that's all that's saying. And then this part, continuation period is important. So where, oops. There we go. Just want to make it so it's like more in the middle of the screen. So E3, the continuation period shall be for blank calendar days after the representation period or an extension. So if you turn the page, I just want to read you guys the paragraph. It's so much easier to explain that way. So you turn the page and you look at C1. Oh, hold on, let me see, where is it at? Yes. So C1, in the middle of this second page, broker shall be entitled to the compensation provided for paragraph 2E1, which is your commission section, if during the continuation period specified in paragraph 2E3, buyer enters into agreement to acquire property for which their broker was involvement, the timing of such payment is subject to the terms of paragraph 40. Broker's right to compensation pursuant to this paragraph shall only apply if prior to the expiration of the agreement or any extension, broker delivers buyer a written notice of those properties for which their broker was involved in, and there's a form, NBIP. So let me explain that in like common terms. That means if you showed your client properties, it's so good to keep a ledger of everything that you showed them before this contract expires. So say, for the sake of ours, November 15th. Before November 15th, on the 10th of November, you're gonna send your buyer in an email all of the properties that you showed them and give them in that form, that NBIP. I believe it lets you list like all the addresses, and you can keep a running tab in your car forms of like every house you've shown them, and you send that to them saying, these are all of the properties that I showed you. So if you put an offer in on one of these properties even after your agreement expires, during the continuation period, so here in this, oh my gosh, right here, calendar days, I put 90 days here. So within 90 days after your agreement expires, so here, and then brokers shall be entitled to compensation if during the representation period or the continuing period, buyer enters into contract to acquire property for which there was broker involvement. So it's basically still saying you still will be entitled, as long as you have that continuation period of 90 days, you'll still be entitled to a compensation. But after 30 days, so cancellation effective 30 days. So basically what that means is, say you sign up an agreement today, and next week your buyer cancels on you, says, hey, I want to cancel this agreement. They can, or you can, if you don't want to work with them anymore. But it's 30 days after that they can't then say, they can't go put an offer in on a property that you showed them. So it can't be like, oh, thanks for taking me to the property, I'm gonna cancel my agreement with you, and then they go work with the listing agent. They can't do that.
Correct.
Okay?
And if they do,
You're entitled to a compensation.
maybe not the whole 3%,
Yeah.
but a portion of it, right?
Yeah. You
How
can
do you
definitely fight.
find out that they went the route?
So agents will, you're not gonna sit and be playing detective, but if they're like not contacting you back, it's like, what's going on? What's the problem with, like, what happened?
They ghost you.
They ghost you or whatever. Agents will keep a radar on things, and they'll check properties. You have to go see that they recorded on that property to try to go after them.
And see who the owner is.
Yeah.
So if I see that I showed you something that you really loved, and all of a sudden you go MIA on me, and I see that it closed as a cash deal and you and your husband bought it, but you originally saw it when I showed it to you, and you canceled on me or you fired me 2 days later, that sounds a little fishy.
Yeah. So they'll go watch. Agents will go watch. I've seen them do that. Like, because you'll see that when it closes, it'll have the tax history. You'll see their names. So you know, and that's how you prove. But what you want to do is make sure you have that form that has all the addresses you showed them, because that's the biggest thing. If you don't provide that to them when they cancel an agreement on you, or your agreement's going to expire, you don't have a leg to stand on, because you can't just say, oh, this is the MLS.
I showed you that house.
Yeah, you can't just say I showed you. You need to have it written, like proof
Can
that
we
you
have
showed.
is there an official form like that for
Yes.
your client?
Yes, and I
And then they
believe,
sign it?
if I remember correctly, the NBIP. And that has, it's a written notice to the buyers of the properties that you've shown them. It's on page 205 in section C.
And you gotta deliver it a certain amount of days before it expires, right?
It can't expire and then you deliver it to them that day or the next day. You need to deliver it to them a couple days before.
205 section C?
Which one?
Is that what you said, the form, the notice?
The notice is NBIP.
Okay, what was the 205 section C?
Oh, page 205. So on this page of here.
Oh, page 205.
205, yes, sorry.
You thought it was a disclosure.
No.
You're ahead of the game, Lizzie.
205, it's paragraph C2.
Okay.
Yeah, it's where it says that form. but that's what you deliver to them, and that works on listings too. So we have one in here where the seller, it's just a recent example, it happened last year. Our seller canceled on our agent, and she was like so upset. She did so much marketing, she did all this stuff, she brought an offer, fell out of escrow, like all these things. And the seller was like so upset about the whole situation, but she still had a contract, but she wanted to get out of it, and she told her, I'm just gonna rent it, because we're moving out of state, I'm just gonna rent it. She did not rent it, she went and listed it with another agent after that. The problem was is that our agent did not send to the seller all the people that came through the list of all the agents that showed her property. And
One of those ended up buying it.
and yes, and one of those ended up buying it. And she didn't get a commission because she hadn't provided to the seller all the people that came through, the agents that came through, and the buyers. So that's really important when you're showing property too, or when you're on the listing side, getting a list from the agent, hey, what's your buyer's name, you know, or whatever, because it just helps to know that information. The more information you can get, the better. Okay? So all of this information, you don't necessarily need to fill this out. This is if you want, so this is if as an agent, you want to see if a buyer can pay you commission. So, I mean, you can chime in on this as well if you want. My personal opinion is that most likely the seller is gonna pay, so it doesn't really matter if the buyer can pay you. We were worried about that at the beginning, how sellers were going to react and say, I'm not paying commission, why should I pay commission? You're the TC fee for you. It's not gonna come out of your commission. Buyer's gonna be charged that money, the $500. You can put that in other terms. You're to pay a TC fee of $500. That is gonna be with their closing costs. So they're already gonna have their 2%, 3% of closing costs. That just gets paid at the end with all their other closing costs.
So TCs get paid with closing costs?
Yes, there's no upfront fee they have to pay. It's not like, you know, anything like that. But you can put it here in other terms. It's good to disclose it up front. If you forget to put it in here, you put it in the RPA. So when you're doing an offer, there's a little box that has other terms, just like right here. You would add it in there.
So our RPA is actually a residential purchase agreement, which is gonna be next Friday's class, which I'll be doing.
Yes, yeah, okay?
Okay, so the TC, what is the TC?
I do it for all of his clients. He has another job, so it's really hard for him to communicate sometimes during the day. So I'm like, hey, I'm here all day to communicate for you. And so he'll introduce me at the beginning, and he'll just say, hey guys, this is my transaction coordinator. She's part of my team. She'll be talking to you guys. Now that we're open to escrow, she's gonna be talking to you guys throughout this transaction. She'll let you know what she needs from you, et cetera, et cetera. And then I say, hey, it's so nice to work with you guys. I'm really excited, blah, blah, blah. And then, we move on from there. So a lot of them, it's actually fun because I like it because I don't know clients necessarily, but by the end of the transaction, I'm like, I'm so excited for you guys, because I know them after the 30 days.
Because you went through the journey
I
with
went
us.
through the trenches with
Yeah,
you.
I've been through
Absolutely.
the journey, so I get excited because I love that part of real estate. I've been in real estate for 20 years, so I love that part, and they're getting their keys. And then I'll see my agents post videos of them, and I'm like, tag me, like put me in it, and I'm all excited that they're giving them gifts and all the things, So it kind of makes me more, I feel like it helps the clients kind of know there's more people helping them than just,
They feel more
yeah.
at
And
ease.
especially if they're paying the fee because they're like, oh, she was worth the $500, to help me,
Exactly.
So we don't take too much more time. I'm gonna finish up here. So all those middle pages just explains the first page grid. It explains all the terms of it. So we don't need to go over those. Just read this contract when you guys have time. Sit and read the contract. It's really important. But I do want to point out here, this box 15 is what I was talking about earlier, where if it's exclusive, the buyer's initials have to be there. And DocuSign is optional. That's where that initial goes. So it's really important to make sure when you get your contract back signed, you see that initial. So it's the last page, so it's 5 of 5. And it's box 15, and they box it for you, so you know.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So you said one more time so I can write it down.
So for exclusive, you should always have an initial here. On
Okay.
every BRBC you have, there should be an initial. If it's missing the initial of your buyer, make sure you get that signed before you're showing property. Double check it. Just double check to make sure it got signed. Okay? And then all this bottom part is where everyone signs. When you're in your car forms, all this information populates for you. So it looks blank right now, but when you put your client's name on that first page, the agency that we were talking about and your name, all of your information, all of that populates to here. So you don't need to write anything in past that point. The only time that you would write, add something in is if they're an entity buyer. So like an LLC,
Corporation,
or a trust,
a
a
trust.
corporation, you would write the name of their entity here. You would check that box and write the name of the entity. That's what entity means. And then you write the name of the legally authorized signer, whoever they are. Okay? And then the rest of the disclosures attached to this just come with the contract. They are all in your offers as well. But the first one is the BIA, which is the Buyer Investigation Advisory, and it's just telling a buyer what kind of investigations they should do for a property. It's very helpful to yourself to know, like, hey, what kind of things are we gonna find out during this transaction? So it kind of explains to a buyer, we're gonna look at all these different things during the escrow, when we get into escrow. And these are just some of them, just some of the items that buyers don't have to pay, or, you know, it talks about that sellers don't have to pay us compensation anymore, what compensation is. It talks all about the new compensation laws, so just read through that one. It's 2 pages, they have to sign that. They have to sign this one, which is the possible representation of more than one seller or buyer. So this means that if you're representing both sides, dual agency, that is a possibility. So say you have a buyer and you have a listing and you bring that buyer to that listing, you're now representing both sides. This is disclosing to them that that could happen. It may not happen, but it could happen. The other thing that it means is our broker is representing the other side. So not just yourself, but say you go show Hector's listing and your buyer puts an offer in on it, now this broker is representing both sides. So it's just disclosing to them that that could happen. It may not. It mostly doesn't happen, but we still have to disclose it to them, okay? And then this last one is about the California Consumer Privacy Act. It's all about the your information, the way your information is collected. So you know how when you guys do the cookie thing and all that stuff, PSRA, the Property Showing and Representation Agreement. So this is, you would only use this one if you're not doing a BRBC. And the reason you would use the Property Showing Representation Agreement, if you look at it, it's way smaller, it's only 5 pages, and it has on it, the first page has specific properties. 3, you can do 3 properties. That's it. So if you're going to show a buyer, this happens with investors a lot. Investor says, hey, I want you to show me this house on such and such, you know, wherever. I don't want to sign a BRBC because I don't want you showing me just everything. I don't want to work with you exclusively. I just want to go see this one listing. You still need to get something signed from them saying, okay, that's great, I'll show you. But say you put an offer in, I want to get paid. So I need you to I need to have this signed. So this one's used rare, it's more rare, but you need to have it signed. If you're gonna go show someone property, you need to have it signed. So this helps too with like open houses. So say you meet someone at an open house and they're like, I'm not ready to sign like a BRBC, but could you go show me a couple houses? Okay, I can do that. I can show you 3 houses and you can put
After that, you either commit or I
no.
can't.
Yes, it's kind of like a non-committal,
A trial period.
A trial period. Do I like you? I'm dating you, kind of thing, and then you get one of these.
Duncan, can you repeat that part again?
So
The difference?
The PSRA is 3 properties, 30 days. The BRBC is 90 days. As many properties in those counties that you're going to show.
And you can extend it.
And you can extend it. And you can, this one you wouldn't need to extend it because it's just that one property, unless they're kind of like waiting on the property. Like maybe there's a probate situation, or investors run into that kind of stuff. So you could extend this, like, hey, I'm extending this another 30 days in case you decide to get your offer accepted on this one. It's not as common, but BRBC is our goal. That's our goal. It's to get you in a committed relationship with our buyer, that's what we call it.
So when we do an open house,
Yeah.
should we take the PSRA
Yes,
with us and have them just in case somebody?
I definitely would have more PSRAs than BRBCs with
Right,
you. Like
okay.
maybe have 1 or 2 BRBCs in your kit. Have more of those, and they're only a few pages. It doesn't make you do all the disclosures with them, all that stuff. It's just the one little 5 pages. Because you're not making like an agency relationship at that point with them. It's mainly just I'm showing you these homes. If you decide to put an offer, I'm entitled to a commission.
Right.
Yeah, so have those with you. The PSRAs are good to have in open house kits, like, you know, stack of them. Okay? Any questions? I think that's it for, so as far as buyer agreements, those are our 2 options. That's it. So that's why we just want to go over both of those today, so you guys know there are 2 options with your buyers. They're gonna sign one or the other of these agreements and what the differences are.
Can we give our compliance officer a big hand? She explained it so well, so detailed.